Thanks for joining us once again. I'm Annette, and I'm here with my co-host, Wendy. And this week we're focusing on this thought-provoking question asking, are you as recovered as you need to be? Yesterday we looked at the first symptom, imposter syndrome, and how it sabotages so much in our life when we allow it to rule our perspective. I mean, it really starts to take over life. And so if you missed that, you might want to go back and listen to that yesterday's episode. Today, though, we're going to be talking about symptom number 2 of the 5 we'll be covering this week, and that is distrusting yourself. And there's a lot of sneaky ways this shows up, because what we're talking about here with distrusting yourself is that really you're not trusting your judgment, you're not trusting your ability to make good decisions, not trusting your ability to even discern things rightly. So how does that show up? Because it's kind of sneaky. So Wendy, what have you observed, maybe in yourself or in others that you've worked with, in the ways that not trusting yourself shows up in everyday life?
Well, when you don't trust yourself, it starts at the very beginning, meaning you're in a situation and you're not sure if you really understand what's going on. If you understand, I want to say, people's agendas, especially in business. Whenever you're in business, you're solving a problem for someone. You have a solution that they need, and you provide that solution, and they pay you for that solution, and hopefully their life is better. When you do that, there's a lot of thinking, planning, judging, noticing that goes on. If you work in a corporate office or you run your own business, you know you are constantly scanning your environment and looking for problems and issues and things that you can work on. Well, we do that in our own lives too. And sometimes when there's a history of narcissistic abuse, you have been gaslighted. And you have learned that you can't really trust yourself to understand what's going on. You think you know what's going on, and then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, 5 days later, 5 months later, none of that was true.
Well, that's so right what you're saying, Wendy, because that's done deliberately. A narcissist will do that on purpose to keep you off balance, to get to the point that you don't trust your judgment, you don't trust what you're perceiving, and that you'll just go along with what they say.
Exactly. And if you've been trained to think that way, perceive yourself that way, live that way, and you've had the rug pulled out from under you 1,000 times, depending on how long the relationship was, after a while you start to think, I just can't figure out what's going on. Every time I think things are this way, they're actually that way. And I was wrong and I got hurt. I felt stupid. I felt bad. I felt like the problem. I felt like the person who can't figure things out. You can fill in the blank 1,000 different ways for how many times the rug was pulled out from you. But after a while, you have been trained to not really know what's going on and to doubt yourself. And that is very sabotaging. And even when you've been out of that relationship, even if it's been 5 years, 10 years, that can be a really hard habit to break. Of not trusting yourself and feeling like I really never quite understand what's going on. I can't quite trust people to tell me the truth. I can't even really see the truth.
Right. And there's a flip side of that coin too, is sometimes we'll trust other people too much because we don't trust our own judgment. So we can get scammed, we can be easily manipulated, and by people who may or may not be intentionally doing this.
Well, you can hire the wrong people. You can end up on teams with the wrong people. You can end up solving the wrong problems. You can end up working in someone else's best interest instead of your own, for the simple reason that you have to trust something. To move forward, you have to trust something or someone. And if you have been trained, or if you have led to believe that you can't trust yourself, well, you've got to fill in that gap. You've got to fill in that hole. You've got to figure out how to move forward. So just like you said, you can end up trusting the wrong people, the wrong situations, and it can really, it can take you definitely down the wrong path of doing the wrong thing in the wrong way at the wrong time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really devastating for us in our life because we're stripping ourselves of personal power.
Yes.
In that respect, because now we don't move forward until someone else says it's okay. Or we're having to be constantly affirmed over and over and over again because we're not doubting. And even when it comes to our relationship with the Lord, am I actually hearing from him?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes us question everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking outside of ourselves and God for answers, for the affirmation, for
Mm-hmm.
permission, for even just saying, am I okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, the repercussions of that's like a domino effect throughout our lives. It prevents us ultimately from being who we're meant to be and accomplishing what we're meant to do for kingdom
Mm-hmm.
purposes. Yeah, so I mean, it can start off in these sneaky little ways and then it just builds and builds and builds. We can be self-sabotaging, like within ourselves, not someone else doing it, but within ourselves when we embrace this mindset, when we, assume that it's accurate, that I
Mm-hmm.
can't trust my own judgment, that I have to look outside of myself for affirmation or permission.
You've
We're
worked
just
with
not going to get anywhere.
a lot of women with the narcissistic abuse. Have
Hmm.
you seen patterns or types of thinking that tend to show up a lot with people who just doubt themselves?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, they shrink into the background.
Mm-hmm.
They will turn their back on fabulous opportunities. They will step into the wrong situations and get hurt over and over again, be taken advantage of. It's just it's really rough. And then they start, as those things pile up, then they start to think there's something wrong with me. They start to think of themselves as a failure in the middle of that. And the enemy grabs a hold of that. I'm talking about our spiritual enemy here. That he roams about like a lion seeking whom he can devour. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That's spiritual enemy. And when we're doing this, then we're coming into agreement with a lie. And we become, there's an open door. We become like a lemming that if the crowd does it, then we're going to go along with it because I don't trust myself to perceive something differently or accurately. I just go with groupthink. And groupthink might be leading you down a very, very wrong path where what we needed to do in the moment was listen to God, listen to the Holy Spirit within us if we know the Lord, plant our feet, have our own convictions,
Mm-hmm.
and stand against the tide if that's what it takes. But if we're struggling with this, we're not able to do that.
No. It's hard to be the one person standing if, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, everybody else is running in one direction and you're standing still. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be really confident in what you
Right.
see, what you feel, what you think, what you
Mm-hmm.
do to stand alone.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, again, like we've talked about, if you are running a business or running a team or running a family, sometimes you are standing alone and
Mm-hmm.
you are having to make some pretty rough decisions that you have to work really hard to make happen,
Right.
right? To solve that problem or to build that team or whatever it is you're doing. And if you have doubt and judgment, the people beneath you also don't listen very well.
That's right.
And then you can read that room badly by saying, well, the problem is that they don't think I know what I'm doing and maybe I don't belong here. And that goes back to what we talked about yesterday with
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
When instead, if you have the courage of your convictions and you feel very strongly about, no,
Mm-hmm.
this is the right way to go. It's going to be a rough road to walk, but we're going to walk it and it's going to take us to where we need to go and we're going to be okay. You inspire that confidence and people follow. And so this type of doubting your own judgment isn't just a you thing. It can turn into a whole flowing downhill team thing with leading your family, with leading something at work, with running your business. It can insidiously lie to you
Mm-hmm.
in that you feel like, well, maybe I'm not confident and that's why people don't, or I'm not competent. That's why
Mm-hmm.
people don't trust me, when really it's a confidence issue and a doubting your own judgment issue.
Right. Right. And so we've been talking this week. We started saying like the biggest step out of these traps, of these symptoms, is observing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we can notice as we're observing ourselves here is maybe we do make a decision, maybe we do stand, but then we lay awake at night, rolling the scenario over and over in our heads, questioning ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just let our yes be yes and our no be no and move forward. We're constantly looking in the rearview mirror, second guessing ourselves of everything. So what are some other things when we say observe yourself this week? Like that's the takeaway we want you to have is be aware of the symptom and just observe ourselves, like observe the story you're telling yourself.
Yes.
And whose voice is that in your head when you're questioning yourself? What other things, Wendy, would you like
Well,
them to observe?
just because you're thinking something doesn't mean it originated with you. And I know that can seem weird, but just because you're thinking it, it just means you heard it somewhere. Where did you hear it? And if you can trace that back, like yesterday we said, if you're in a certain situation, write down what's going on and what you were thinking or feeling or doing based on that quick little blurb. Same thing here. What are you thinking and who does it sound like? Does it sound like your ex? Does it sound like that old boss? Does it sound like that horrible teacher? Who does it sound like? A parent? Who does it sound like in your head? And that's what you can write down. I heard this. And oh my goodness, did it sound like my ex? Oh my goodness, did it sound like that horrible boss? And start recording those thoughts and who it sounded like. What are you observing? And just because you think something also doesn't mean it's from somebody else, and it's not true. Sometimes we do need to change our mind and look at things and examine things. But overall, if you have a pattern of not trusting your decisions, not understanding why you don't feel confident and safe in your abilities, it's time to start watching what you're thinking and writing it down very impartially. So the goal in writing these notes isn't, oh, it sounds like my mom or my dad or my ex or my boss, and I'm a horrible person for believing that. No. That's not what we're doing. We're writing down, oh, it sounds like so-and-so, and this is what I heard in my head, and this is what it led me to feel. That's interesting, and that's data. And if I did that once, do I have to keep doing that? No. What else am I doing that maybe I don't have to keep doing? And so right now, that's what we're doing. We're recording and observing times when you do not feel confident in your own decisions, in your own choices, in your own plans, in your own power to make changes and solve problems. Start taking notes about what those things were, the situation, and who it sounded like. Who does it remind you of?
Yep. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So tomorrow we're going to take a look at symptom number 3, lackluster and trudging. So join us tomorrow and we're going to unpack that a little bit further. But right now we want to encourage you to partner with God. That means involve the Lord in this process. Invite Him to help you observe. You know, if there's anyone who can talk to you throughout the day, it's Him to help you recognize, give Him permission to tap you on the shoulder when it's happening, when those thoughts are going through your mind, to help bring that awareness. And expect Him to do immeasurably more than you asked or hoped for in really, really good ways in your life overall. And you've got us here. We're here to provide some guidance and some wisdom, and we're going to challenge you to grow. So focus today on that 1% improvement, just a little bit better than what you were yesterday, a little bit better than you were last week, because all those 1% improvements add up. So if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, you can look in the show notes. You'll see a link that you can text us. We'd love to hear from you. If you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, you can reach out and email us at hello@AnnetteChesney.com. You'll find that link in the description as well. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode to help it get in front of others that it can help. And check it also because we've got some links for other helpful resources in the description too. We want to encourage you to keep going because we know when you're on the right path, your best is yet to come. We'll see you tomorrow.